What is going on, guys? Today I bring you another video of the journey to National Master. It's been a while, it's been like 2 months since I uploaded. I started working and yeah, I just haven't found much time to do these videos and motivation as well. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. So, in this episode, I will be finishing the Figueira da Foz Open. It was a tournament that I played back in November of 2023. Exactly. And yeah, this was actually a very important round for me because it was the last round that I was gonna play the tournament, and I calculated that if I drew the game or won the game, I would cross 1700, which was a big accomplishment for me at the time to get. Uh, Spoiler alert: I actually didn't matter. In at the end of the day, even a loss would still get me into 1700, but I didn't know that at the time. And yeah, I prepared basically the whole day for him, for my opponent, Adilson Mata, excuse me, 1927 ELO rated player, so another 1900. Yeah, I was feeling confident. I prepared a lot of the Rossolimo because after he always played the Sicilian in the games that I watched in the database, and he always went for knight c6. And I prepared just bishop e5 and a lot of lines here, and I just looked at that. I was just completely sure that he was gonna go for this Sicilian. But then I sat on the at the board. I played e4, and my opponent played e5, and I was like, oh no, oh no. I was like so. Ooh, what do I do now? Like, I normally play bishop c4, knight c3, but to be honest, I played a lot online, and even I played already in some tournament games, but I just never really looked at the lines in depth, and there's a lot of tricky options that both white and black need to know, and I thought that he prepared something against those lines, so I decided to switch things up. I went knight c3 still, and after knight f6, I thought to myself, okay, I only need a draw, so what is the best thing? What's the best variation that I can play for a draw in this line? And, I studied a bit of e45, actually, quite a lot for my own play and my own tournaments, although I didn't really end up using it that much. And yeah, I decided to go for the four knights. Knight f3, knight c6, and just the very dry d4. Takes. And yeah, I just remember that when I was studying this with black, there was a lot of ways that black could kill the game, and it felt like white was never really in trouble in any of the lines because, yeah, it just felt like a very equal position where if anyone is better, it's probably white, just by a slight margin. Not a real significant advantage. But okay, my opponent went bishop e4. Uh, we played some very standard moves in the four knights uh, game, Scotch variation, so I'm not gonna waste too much time here. C takes on d5, bishop g5, c6, and yeah, I think it was in this position in move 10 that I didn't know what was the follow-up. I didn't know theory, um, and I just decided to play some logical moves. So I went queen f3, which is totally fine, threatening to damage the structure by taking on f6. And my opponent went back with the bishop to e7. I played h3, stopping bishop g4, which would be annoying. My opponent just plays rook b8, and here I played rook b1. I could have played b3 as well. I think there was nothing wrong with that, but I played rook b1. And now my opponent plays bishop e6, developing the last minor piece. And yeah, now I kind of felt like I had to play b3, which was very awkward. But the problem is that my opponent was threatening to play d4, kick the knight away from c3, and then the pawn would be hanging on a2. So yeah, I had to play b3, which yeah, it just was a bit bad. I shouldn't have played rook b1 here. I think I should just played b3. but for some reason I thought that there was no difference, but my opponent kind of punished me for that. But okay, it's still fine. My opponent plays bishop h6, asking my bishop a question. I just fall back to f4. Now my opponent, you know, blocks this diagonal with the bishop and asks me if I want to trade it. I don't want to trade it immediately, so I just play knight e2, trying to reroute this knight to a better square. My opponent goes c5, and here I play rook bd1, and my opponent plays rook b6. Yeah, rook b6, it's a very nice move, but I didn't really understand rook b6. Yeah, I just thought that, okay, that's a move, I guess. And I just decided to keep going and improving my pieces. I played knight g3, and now my opponent actually punishes me for playing knight g3, which was a bad move, as you'll see. Now my opponent correctly takes on f4, I take back with the queen, and now rook b4 comes. And this took me by surprise, because I wasn't really expecting rook b4. It was very weird for my opponent to play rook b6, and then just like 2 moves after, or 1 move after actually, just play rook b4. And of course, you know, I should have traded on d6, and after queen takes, knight f4. And I'm doing very well, because I'm actually putting pressure on the d5 pawn, I'm putting pressure on the bishop. Yeah, the rook is eyeing the queen, and I guess if my opponent takes with the rook, there are still some problems with knight f4. And yeah, I'm still targeting the bishop. I guess the d5 pawn now is well protected, but yeah, I would love this position for sure as white. But okay, I made an inaccuracy here, allowing this rook b4. I went back to d2, so that my opponent doesn't really have time to play c4, which would be a nice break for him, I think. And yeah, here my opponent played queen c8, and this move also, like, it felt very, very strong by him. And here I spent a long time, because I was trying to figure out if there was a threat or not. Because if there's not a threat, I can just play c3 and kick this rook out, and then I'll think about where I want my pieces to go. But I saw a threat. I saw a threat that I didn't like. I saw that if I just play c3 carelessly, I thought that my opponent could go rook h4. And now the problem is that my opponent is threatening to take on h3 and like just completely ruin my position. Let's say I play like rook e1, just a simple move. I thought that I would be completely lost after like bishop takes on h3, g takes on h3, queen takes on h3, and now like my opponent is threatening all sorts of stuff, like queen h2 check, knight g4, and I mean, this just felt like I was gonna get mated. Apparently here there's nothing, and this is why you should actually calculate for real and not only go by looks. Apparently here after rook e5 I'm completely fine. There's nothing I have to worry about. Yeah, let's say knight g4 here. I have just rook takes on d5, and there's no threats. Actually, this knight is a champion. This knight is protecting everything. Queen h3 check, king g1 here, and yes, I guess my opponent has a draw here, but I wouldn't be unhappy with that. But yeah, so after like c3 there was no real threat. Actually, after rook h4 I can even just play f4, and now like this doesn't work. Although this looks very scary, but I have queen g2 in this case because I moved the f pawn, so yeah, I'm doing fine, I'm up a piece. But yeah, I didn't calculate properly. I really thought that after rook h4 I didn't really have an answer for this, but I indeed had f4 as a move. So instead of playing c3, I played f4 immediately, and now I thought this was the only move, because now my opponent can't go to h4 with the rook. Yeah, a lot of bad decisions by me this game. I was definitely showing the nerves and also showing that I don't really understand this position, specifically position in this opening. So, yeah. After f4, my opponent played rook fd8, makes a lot of sense. And now I just played c3, kicking the rook away, rook b6. And now I play f5, which is a very bad move. As you'll see later, um, on in the game, this will actually be a very detrimental move. Yeah, f5 is just bad, honestly. Not too hard to understand why. When I play f5, I block my own bishop, so like before f5, I was still threatening some stuff along this diagonal. I could just back up the bishop to c2, maybe put a queen on d3, play knight h5, try to take away this defender and stuff like that. Also, I had this square maybe for my knight in the future. And yeah, this pawn was... It was good here, honestly. It was good here on f4. It wasn't a target at all, because my opponent couldn't just take it. A light square, and there's a lot of pieces of my opponent looking at it, and yeah, it's just an unnecessary move. It's one of those moves where, okay, you're attacking a piece, you're forcing your opponent to go to d7, but what did you really accomplish with that? It turns out that I didn't really accomplish that much. I didn't really accomplish much. The only thing that I accomplished is that I vacated the f4 square for one of my pieces, which I tried to use with queen f4, but my opponent just simply offers the queen trade. And yeah, this makes a lot of sense for my opponent. Not only is he okay with the endgame after these trades, but like I don't really have a good square to move my queen away, because I have to keep protecting the knight on g3. So yeah, and like, yeah, it was just a bad move. I mean, f5. I ended up trading the queens, and I was surprised that my opponent took with this rook. I thought that taking with the d8 rook would be better to get play on the queen side and, you know, play for this potential open of the b file. But my opponent decided to take with the other rook. And here I played rook e1. My opponent played rook e8. I played king f2. My opponent played a5. And yeah, here I played rook takes on e8, and I offered the draw. And my opponent, after just like probably 1 minute thinking, he declined the draw offer, and he said that he wanted to keep playing on. And so we keep playing on. And yeah, this position is slightly better for black, for sure. Here I play rook e1, offering another trade of pieces. My opponent declines, goes rook b8. I go knight e2, trying to reroute this knight to a better square. And my opponent plays a4. And now there's a critical decision. What do I do about this queenside tension? I decide to play rook b1. Nice move. After takes on b3, a takes on b3. And now, okay, I mean, you see that this pawn, if it was on f4, maybe I could say that I was... If the pawn was on f4, I think I could say that I was even, like, slightly better, maybe. Because I could just focus on trying to create, like, a passed pawn here on the b file, and if I play like b4, I later can play like knight d4, and yeah, I have some nice squares for my pieces, and I don't have to worry about this pawn being stuck on a light square. So yeah, my opponent decides to bring the king into the game. I play b4. I think it's still a nice move to try to create something on the queen side and to try to break down this nice pawn center of my opponent. Here my opponent takes on b4, and I take on b4, and now I'm even slightly better. So yeah, the game can turn around pretty quickly, and I got what I wanted. I broke down his center, and now I have some nice dark squares for my pieces. My opponent plays king e7, I play king e3, king d6, king d4, and yeah, we both have our kings on the perfect squares, but I think I'm slightly better because my king is more advanced than his king. His king is on the third file and my king is on the fourth file. So yeah. Here my opponent plays rook a8. I decide to play knight c3, improving my knight and also stopping any rook a2s. My opponent plays bishop c6. I play rook b2, the second rank. My opponent plays knight d7, and now like I started getting worried because my opponent is threatening to jump here with the knight on e5, and then he's attacking my bishop, and the knight on e5 can be very annoying in the near future, with possibilities of maybe jumping to c4 if I move the bishop from this diagonal. So yeah, I started getting worried. I played rook a2, which is an horrible move. It's a very bad move. And this is a move that completely shows that I'm just scared of playing this out, playing this for a win. I just want to draw, and yeah, this is just a horrible move. And my opponent just takes on a2. I take back with the knight, and now after knight e5, you know, my opponent is attacking the bishop. My knight is completely offside, and yeah, I didn't really accomplish anything. Like, my rook was so well placed here on b2. I could just start pushing the pawn. There was nothing wrong with this. This would actually be very strong for me to start pushing the pawn. But no, I just decided to not do that, and I decided to trade rooks. Funnily enough, actually, after if I played b5 and we got bishop e7, now the best move is rook a2. So yeah, the secret is in the details, as they like to say. Now after rook takes on a2, knight takes on a2, if my opponent decides to go for knight e5, I have bishop b1, and all of a sudden I'm going knight b4, and yeah, I'm doing very well. But in my version, after this trade and knight e5, I don't have knight b4, and I also don't have time for b5 because here my opponent just takes the bishop, and it's not the same thing. So yeah, I'm one tempo behind here, pretty much. So I just decided to play bishop e2. My opponent goes bishop a d7, and here we were starting to get low on the clock, and there's only one move to keep the balance, and I completely misevaluated the position. I played b5, which is a pawn sacrifice. My opponent just takes on f5. My fear was that after the logical g4, which is the best move, I was afraid of knight c6 check, and now after something like king e3, my opponent can bring the king in with like something like king e5, and I thought that I was just gonna get rolled because of this passed pawn here with d4 check coming, and when I move my king to d2, for example, my opponent has king f4, is entering the position, getting all my pawns, and I just lose. But here I still have only moves to keep me in the game, like b5, for example, d4 check. King f2 is the correct, 97, and now b6. This would have to be calculated very precisely. And yeah, I just wasn't really calculating more than like one move or two moves deep. So yeah, I wasn't calculating at all. I was just going by feeling this whole game, which was a very big mistake because my feeling wasn't right at all. All these times I made bad decisions. So yeah, I didn't allow this. I just played b5, trying to create counterplay with my b pawn and sacrifice this pawn to not allow my opponent to have knight c6 check. My opponent just takes. I play knight b4. my opponent goes bishop e4, which is a very strong and annoying move. Now I'm forced to move these pawns, which I didn't want to touch these pawns, but I had to. F5, and now, I mean, you can see that my opponent is completely better. Maybe he's not winning yet, but he's completely dominating. This bishop is a monster here, you know, protected by 2 pawns. This knight is super well placed on e5. This king is ready to come in as soon as he gets a chance. And this bishop is super passive and not doing much, only just protecting b5. So, yeah. I knew that I was in big trouble here. I was hoping to still trick him somehow and still manage to save the game. I went knight a6. My knight is such a bad piece. He went to a2, b4, a6. It's so bad. Knight d7 by my opponent. I play bishop h5, g5. I play bishop e8, and now there's a big trick here that I calculated precisely. I actually calculated precisely. There's a very natural move for black that completely loses the game on the spot, which I calculated properly, and I spent basically all the time that I had on my clock left to calculate this. We were already past move 40, so we had the increment of 30 minutes, but still I was low on the clock, of course, because I was in huge trouble. But yeah, I calculated that the move knight f6 loses on the spot, actually, because there's no time to take this bishop. b6 wins, and after knight takes on e8, just b7. And yeah, there's no real way for my opponent to stop the pawn. It can approach with the king, and yeah, that was the calculation, which it took me way too much, way too much time to calculate that, honestly. Should be immediately. But of course, my opponent didn't fall for this. He played knight e5 immediately, so he already had seen the trick way before I did. I still played b6. Knight f3 check is a killer here, because after king e3 gets d4 check with tempo, king has to go back, king f2, and now he just goes back with the knight, and he stops the pawn so many times that yeah, there's nothing I can do here. I played a few more moves out of just desperation, and yeah, there's no real way to swindle my opponent here. He just converted like a beast. He just converted really well, very cleanly, and yeah, after bishop c2, I have no squares for my knight. It's kind of funny. I can't go to a3, I can't go to c3, I can't go to d2, and yeah, I lost the game. I got completely outclassed. I got completely punished. And yeah, the moral of the story is that you shouldn't just go into a game just thinking about the draw, because it will just make you play worse and you will miss your chances. And that's what happened. I deserved this loss. I was very upset, but at the end of the day, I still ended up crossing 1700. I shall see in the next video. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you for the next episode. Bye bye.